That's a big one, dude. Whoa, that's a big one.
Lake Michigan, Coho Derby, Salmon Derby.
That's a big one. That's the one we're looking for. That's what we call a tourney fish. We only need one. Yeah! 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 Yes!
Some assistance.
We got the giant, folks! We are in the It's a donkey!
Wow!
Here we go. In there.
New leader, 28.40 pounds.
Say that again.
28.40 pounds, new leader.
Yeah.
You know, Jared's been talking about this for a while now, last year or so. So we decided we were gonna pull the Yakima bait sled out here, 2.5 days of driving, to see what our West Coast tactics could do on Lake Michigan. We had an idea, but we really wanted to put our techniques on this water. The boat itself is weird. The techniques are weird for out here. We actually got a bunch of people talking crap. You know, I can't catch fish on those weird plastic rod holders and out of that boat without a cabin and a heater and a cooler in it. And, you know, so that was our goal. And it wasn't to come out here and show anybody up or anything like that. It was to come out here and just see if these tactics would work, and maybe we can help people catch fish a different way, which is always what our goal is. And some of the ways that we were doing things, the average Joe can come do this. You know, could come catch 25, 30 king salmon a day with pretty easy, really. Like if you look at all these tips, you watch all these tips, and you're here at the right time, like it's not hard. And we're gonna give you all the tools right now and talk about what happened. So, you know, I'll go with Jared now. Like day one, what were you thinking, and how did it go down?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've been talking about this trip for a year, and you know, back home, our techniques have evolved so fast that they are so efficient now at catching salmon. It's like the most efficient I've ever seen as far as catching salmon. And so I came out here with Pat last year. It was like, I don't know, September-ish, October-ish, right? And I said, we gotta try what I'm doing at home. And we murdered them, right? Like, and so it was like, okay, so this works. And then we started talking about the Coho Derby. And so before long, this whole thing comes to plan. We're on our way here, dragging a 6,000 pound sled, 2,000 miles across the freaking country, not sleeping, you know, whatever. And anyway, so before I left, of course, like I always do, I rigged up rods, tied leaders, everything was ready to go when we got here. So we get here, we're all excited. It's that afternoon, we dump the boat, we head out, you know, and go by what everybody's telling us they're doing, and we go out, we dump rods, and you know, we catch 4, which I thought, that's not bad, right? You know, we caught 4, but they were small fish, and the program was just, I don't know, it just didn't seem like it was dialed. So, of course, you know, Pat shows up, and the next day we go out, and we're fishing, and you know, he's like, we should put out some boards. I'm like, no, dude, let's run this thing. We should do this. I'm like, no, let's do this. Well, and after a while, right, it's like, okay, so, you know, but that's part of fishing, is learning to adapt.
And we could see the fish coming into our spread.
Yeah,
we could see the salmon come into our spread, follow it, and leave.
And they wouldn't chew.
And so we all started talking about, okay, now what do we do?
Yeah.
Immediately, we all said downsize. The water's super clear, right? Which is what you said.
Yeah.
There was a problem. The difference was in the two fisheries, and even when you were here in October, dirty water, super, super clear water. Okay, maybe it's too much for them. Right.
Yeah, well, you know, inside, like less than 50 feet, the water was a little dirtier, especially when they had, I think they had rain something at that point in time, so the river itself was pouring dirtier water out there, and the fish were stacked up, staging ready to come upriver anyway. They weren't out in the lake actively doing their thing. And so, you know, that presentation was ideal for that. And, you know, I'll let Pat talk on what he did, but, you know, I mean, he brought his aspect to it. We still used the same lures, the same bait, the same, it was the same basically on the business end.
Yes.
Right? He just really changed, you know, just the beginning of it, like, you know, downsized our flashers, lengthened our bumpers. You know, back home we fish the biggest bumper I ever fished back home, and the bumper section is the section that goes between your weight and your flasher, right? And so,
which is right here.
Yeah.
So the weight's here. You can see, like, the weight's here. This is where the slider is, right here, and then the bumper is here. And typically it's like that long, right?
No, typically it's 24 inches.
24 inches. So we're talking like that long at home.
On the West Coast.
Yeah. On the West Coast. And you can see what we ended up with here. This is what we ended up.
Almost 10 feet.
Almost 10 feet worth of bumper. And we'll go into that here in a little bit.
But you know, that's the section, right? And so you know, that's where Pat. I guess I'll let Pat chime in on why, you know, why he did that and why he wanted to do that.
Yeah, and we just to preface it, after we changed these things up, we started getting success.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, talk about what you were thinking
Well,
about.
I'm gonna be honest with you. At first, it was brutal. You know, being from the Midwest right here and trolling the way that you guys do it and the way that we did it in the fall was phenomenal in the fall because we had the dirty water, right? So it hides the boat more, it hides the flash more, and there's not as much flash, and you know, we're in shallower water, and everything was ideal at that point. And it was a melee, like you were saying, Jared. It was an absolute melee when we were here doing it that way. But when we get into the heat of the summer and we get out in the open water, when I talk open water, I'm talking 40 feet or above, right? So skinny water is 20 feet or below, and then open water is kind of the deeper section. And we were out there, and what we were doing just wasn't working. You know, it was too short. It seemed like everything was right on top of each other, and that's not the style that we do. So, you know, we do a lot of offshore stuff, you know, so it's one of them stuff. We can hook up offshore planer boards, and we were running 20-ounce pumps on these things all day long, and they carry them, you know, so we could scoot them out to the side. So these have a 45-degree angle, and when they have that, you know, just like anything, they're going to cut against that water. So the way that they cut, you know, it's just like anything. When you have that angle and the water is hitting it, it scoots out to the side. Now we hook our bait up to here, and then we engage it off of this front clip. And even that, when we started doing that, we had a different front clip that wasn't popping all the time. And then we were getting snarfles, we were getting tangles, we were getting everything because those weights were dropping. We were, you know, working that gear and stuff. But when this thing pops, what happens is it pulls just like this. So if you have this coming down through it, it's going to pull just like that. But if this pops out, you know, so that plunger comes out and the line kind of comes off of that little peg there, and then she flips back like this, and you have no drag. So then it comes to the back of the boat, and you could drag that fish in right up the back of the boat without getting in all the other lines. So these became very essential at that point to be able to spread our lines out. And then,
because that's where we were getting bit.
Oh man, I bet you it was 10-1.
Is away from the boat.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, as soon as we started putting things out away from the boat, it was a thing, right? Like I never really believed much in that, and this proved it to me here big time. And once we got them out and away, so we'll show you here in just a second what we were running. So we were running 3 planer boards off of each side. So we had 6 rods on planer boards and 2, just like we fish them at home.
Yeah, lead balls.
Lead balls, as he calls them, pumps, up off the very front. Not to be confused with high heels for women.
Yeah.
Pumps.
Yeah.
So here's exactly, go ahead.
Sorry not to interrupt on that, but going into that, you were talking about your lead.
Right.
And we noticed out on the outside, just like we were running Magnum Dipsy Divers or something on our everyday charter services, we run really long leads to get it away from that. You know, when a ball comes through the water, it creates bubbles, right? Or when a line goes through any water, it creates bubbles, right? So when you're coming through and you're straining the water with 9 lures or 9 lines going down, it's creating almost a wall of bubbles, right? So what we do is we lengthen those leads out, so when the bait comes through, you don't have that effect. It's just like if you're, another thing that we do is in like really shallow water, instead of running these, we'll run really big boards and just clips going down, so nothing affects or spooks that fish before the fish comes through. But going back to your point earlier on the shorter leads, we lengthen those leads to get away from the bubbles of the weight coming through in front of it, so it was clean water when this prey fish, or you know, when the fish came through, and then they attacked it.
Yeah, and that's what led to the success. So just to recap, we struggled for the first day big time. The next day we started putting fish to the boat. Next afternoon we were really excited, and then over the next couple days leading up to this derby, we dialed it in, and every day we got a little better. We got better with running it, because it's non-stop running gear, non-stop guys running from the foot to the back and doing things. So we're going to show you the gear right now. This is the key to everything right here.
So we run
10.5 foot heavy.
Yeah, 10.5 foot heavies, because those lead balls, you know, what you want them to do is you want that rod to have a breaking point in it. And so as it's hanging there, that flasher has a chance to work right back home. That's where we're using those 11-inch Pro Trolls. It has a chance to work. A shorter rod, it won't allow it to break. And also, these things will hang, as you can see, 20, 24 ounces of lead.
Right.
And you can still fish them.
Which we hung a lot of 20-ounce leads on this rod and off the boards. If you can believe that, if you've ever run planer boards, hanging 20 ounces of lead off those Magnum boards was working, which I would have never guessed. So we're going to like an 8 or 10 foot bumper from our weight, running like 60 to 80 pound fluorocarbon or mono. Mono's kind of a good option because there's a little bit of a stretch to it too, but this is a fluorocarbon that's got a little stretch to it. 8-inch boards. So we were running these 8-inch flashers and a handful of different, you can kind of see that one, but here's kind of our basic rig, right? So we had glow. Pat loves the glow stuff, right?
Well, not only the glow, but you can also see the majority of them when he starts getting into it. There's a lot of UV on that gets that flash. And even earlier, Jarod was saying positioning of the boat in the sun. You know, he wants to put it sideways so the side of the board hits that sun more and gives more flash. It made a ton of sense when he started describing that. I never thought of that, and I've been doing this for 30 years, where if I position the boat just right, when that board flips and that sun is off to the side, instead of going straight into it, you get more flash. That made a ton of sense.
It does. And, you know, going back to the gear, you know, the way we run these things, it's important to have a line counter reel because, you know, one thing that we noticed was our outside boards, we were putting them at 50 feet deep with a 12-ounce lead. So we put 50 feet out on the line counter, clip the board, send it out. The next ones were 75 feet, right? And then, you know, those were 12 ounces of lead. Our inside boards, we were running 75 feet, but with 20 ounces of lead. So we're probably fishing, you know, 15 to 25 feet deeper in the water column. And, you know, braids, you know, is important. We run a 65-pound braid with this system. We run it at home the same way, but here it's important too because, you know, you got that board and you got that flasher, you got your gear, you're talking 30, 40, 50 bucks worth of gear. And so a 65-pound braid is important. And, you know, to get the weight on, I'm sure people are wondering, how'd you get the weight on? This is how, you know, we rig it back home. This is a little T-bead. I'm sure you can kind of see this thing. And what this does is this keeps all like any moss or weeds or whatever like we get back home in the ocean off of it. And just a few beads to break it off. Now this part here is really critical, especially if you're running braid. This is what's called a VIP line lock. And this is our system for getting our weight on here. And it's a slider so you can see. So when those fish pull on it, the line goes through it. But the most important piece of this thing is it's got a key on it and it locks into this bead chain. So all this spinning gear behind our flasher and our bait, as it spins, it acts like a bearing because if you don't have this on here with all this spinning gear, this braid's gonna start spinning up. And if this braid starts twisting up, every time it twists over itself once, it loses half its strength. So very important puzzle for all this spinning gear to set up this way with a dropper ball.
Yeah, that's it. And let's talk about just want to talk about those weights, how we had them staggered real quick. So from the bow of the boat, 20-ounce lead balls, and then as they went back, Pat, talk about what weights you had and how deep.
Yeah. So the outside, we would let out 50 feet and then clip it with a 12-ounce ball. So it'd be higher and shorter, right? And then all of a sudden, the next one would be 12-ounce ball and 75 feet. And the reason that is because when it drops, that one that's 50 feet will come out and it won't get tangled in that inside one because the inside one is deeper. So throughout the duration of the weekend, what's going on is our outside boards, you know, Jarod has noticed that majority of our fish that we were targeting were between 40 and 60 feet. So our outside board was at 50. Our middle board was at 75. Our inside board was at 75. But you had 12 ounce versus 20 ounce. So we were right in that water column, even though we were 90 feet up, you know.
And staggered in a way that we don't get caught up with each other.
Exactly. The outside board was higher. The middle board was middle and the inside was deepest. So therefore, when you drop these things back, you can go all the way back and then engage it by closing the line counter and it circles out on the backside of everything.
Super important to have line counters like we talked about. So right into our baits. All the baits that were successful this trip were the SpinFish, which you're probably familiar with those at this point, but the new one, the cut plug, was one that we had a lot of success with. But the colors, so it was the 3.0 SpinFish. This color right here is called corn chowder. The double trouble, which is the chartreuse front and back chrome. Chrome was the pink. You can kind of see a pattern going here. A lot of chromes. Chartreuse was money. If you don't have the Fish Ang leaderboards, these things are money for organizing your stuff. You can see like all of our rigs are set up on these things, so that made it really efficient. You can see the new cut plugs here, the different size spinning fish, but the chrome and your chartreuse was kind of the key, along with one here that did a lot of work that Pat loved. With this is the
Glow
one.
dill pickle.
What is it?
It's called the glow dill pickle.
Glow dill pickle. And you can see something we did kind of crazy here. Now you're going to want to pay attention to this. UV flies on the leader. So we had a couple of these leaders set up, and as you can see, we tied slip bobber knots to keep them in the middle of the leader. Looks like a little school of bait fish. And then at one point we had some little Hildebrandt blades on the front of these that were just causing a lot of commotion. We put a fish flash in front of that one because of the drag. But you can see that's kind of the colors with the spinning fish. Jarod, I'll let you talk about the new cut plugs. Those are kind of money for us.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know what a spinning fish or a cut plugger, what we're talking about, you know, what they do is they represent a wounded bait fish, basically, is what it's looking like. You know, it's like a bait fish going through the water. And so, you know, it causes them to strike. And you know, one thing that's unique about these lures, as you can see right here, is same with the spinning fishes, they're a pull-apart lure that you can stuff bait in. You can see this one has bait stuff in. This happens to be tuna fish, but you can pull it apart. You can stuff bait in it, and so as these things rotate in the water, you can see these holes on the side. They're scent ports, and so they actually release scent. So not only you're catching the fish's sight and sound from the vibration, now you're catching their smell too, right? They smell something good. And you know, this new cut plug here is extremely fishy. The spin fish is extremely fishy, and you know, these things fish really good at slow or fast speeds. And so, you know, one thing that was key to us doing out there this week, especially the lead balls, you know what I mean? I don't think you're going to get the same effect with like a leaded line or anything like that. Is I was taking the throttle and I would be going, you know, 2.5 miles an hour, you know, for say 100 yards, and I would back it completely off and just drop the throttle to nothing.
When you see fish too.
Yeah, when I see fish, I can work it with those lead balls. I could work that water column within 25, 30 feet. Because, you know, if I pull that hammer back and stop it, those lead balls would just drop. Right? And as soon as I would hammer it and pick them back up and drag it right back in front of the fish, they would crush it, right? And so a lot of throttle control, you know, up, down. And I encourage people, if you're fishing for salmon, do not just put it at 2.2 and leave it there, right? And do not just go in a straight line, you know. We also found that not just trolling north or south was good, but we found trolling east and west, like I was telling Pat, because that was the way that we got the most flash from the flasher, right? Like even holding this thing right here, as I turn it, you can see it reflect in different ways across the sun, right? And that was really key for us. Now, what did we put inside the spinning fish in the cut plugs? Well,
this is where it comes, and this is the fun part too with the stuffer baits. You can get creative.
Yeah.
You can get creative. Like, what do the fish eat here? Alewives.
Yeah.
We went and bought some bait, some alewives baits, exactly what they're eating. Smashed it up, put in a couple plugs. It worked. This was our key to here, though. This was kind of the main thing we did, right? So we have chicken of the sea.
Tuna in oil.
Tuna in oil.
And any tuna in oil will work. It's good. What you want to do is just crack the can open, Tupperware container, and then you just dump the can with the oil into that Tupperware container. And we were mixing a product it's from Northwest Bait and Scent. The herring formula and the sardine formula were absolutely killer. We fished the herring formula for a couple of days and we did really well, and yesterday I started adding the sardine and it definitely kicked up our bite a little bit. And so, you know, salmon smell their way home from the ocean, from a lake, from wherever they live. They smell their way home within, you know, feet. And so sense of smell is something very important for a salmon. That's why these baits are so effective. And you know, the spinning fish comes in 4 different sizes: 2 inch, 2.5, 3 inch, and 4 inch. And so you can kind of match the hatch for whatever size of bait fish they're feeding on in the system. And our new cut plug is going to do the same. It's going to come in a 2, 2.5, 3, and a 4 inch. And so you're able to, like I said, match that hatch to the bait fish that are in the system. And
not only match the hatch on the size, but the
color.
scent and color.
Scent, yeah.
So we all know this. All salmonid species love flash, color, chartreuses, chrome, pinks, all that stuff. So you can add that. You add the wounded bait fish and you add the scent, and you can get super creative with that scent. Like you said, we used the tuna, but we also mixed up some bloody tuna Procure in one.
Yeah.
And we tried that. We put bait fish, like actual bait fish, in it for one.
Yeah.
And then another thing we did was this Procure bloody tuna super gel. So on the spinning fish, you can see right here on the front, you got these little holes. You dab a little bit of this super gel in this little hole right here, and that'll kick more scent out because that water pushes through and pushes over and runs back there. Well, that was kind of our key to running those stuffer baits, I think, was that. And we found that, you know, those things all together all did the job. And to finish this off with, why we're so excited about showing this is we did really well in the Derby. Like, we've never fished here before. Obviously, Pat's from here. We had 4 days to dial in this system. And Pat, talk about how we were getting laughed at.
Oh my Lord. I came rolling into town, and all the local charter guys and all the local mates and stuff, we were laughing stock of the town. I'm telling you what, I walked into the wharf across and, come on, bro. I mean, you got more chairs than you got rod holders. What are you going to do with them plastic rod holders? What are you going to do? You don't even have a downrigger on there. You're not running any copper.
Where we're at now.
You're not running any wire, yeah. And after the 3 days of fishing, I mean, we killed it. We killed it. It's one of them where we have a couple of fish on top of the board. We have,
and there's hundreds of people in this Derby.
Oh yeah,
there's hundreds of people.
Thousands of
Everybody,
fish. Thousands of fish were registered.
Thousands of fish were registered. Tons of very established, accomplished, badass fishermen. And the first day we roll in, biggest king salmon. After day 2, we started with the biggest salmon. For Hunter, had the biggest king salmon, and we were in 4th place in the pro division going in today, which was day 3. Mm-hmm. Well, Hunter got bumped out on the king salmon by a half a pound, like ounces, which beat the current leader by how much?
By like 7 pounds. It was a lot.
You know, we have the biggest brown trout, the second biggest king salmon, and we caught a giant rainbow today, which is 11 pounds, which is probably going to be somewhere in the top 10.
And we had a 25-pound king that's probably close to the
board. And we had a
too.
25-pound king. So we don't know where we're at day 3. We'll show you, you know, at the end of this exactly how we finished. They wouldn't tell us, but we're close to the top, and we're going to find out here a little bit, in you know, at the weigh-in or whatever. And
Hunter, do you want to talk about your big salmon one more time? Just kind of recap, catching it.
I didn't think it was big.
Yeah, what you caught it on and stuff.
What was it on?
It was on SpinFish.
Which one?
Double Trouble.
Oh yeah. So the biggest fish that we caught, the whole time I was reeling in, I was like, oh, it's not very big. Maybe 10, 15 pounds max. I was like, it's not very big. And as soon as it got to the boat, my dad saw it. I was like, oh, it's actually a big fish. So we all actually reeled a couple rods in, kind of actually played it how we were supposed to play it. And it came on a 3-inch double trouble SpinFish, and everybody made fun of me for it because I thought it was big.
And if you follow us on social media at all, you probably have seen this video because we lose our mind.
Yeah.
We lose it on the boat because this guy's, you know, he's fished this his whole life and doesn't see many over 30 pounds, and we thought this one was right there. And you know, it just made the trip. So all of this stuff, like we said at the beginning of this video, all of this stuff is pretty simple. It's not that expensive, and you can go do this out here and be super successful doing exactly what we said here. And we're excited to show it to you. Go do it. Have some fun. You guys, you know, thank you. We had a great day. All the things.
It was
great. Awesome.
You guys have anything else to add to any of that?
Yeah, no, bucket list trips are fun, right? And you know, part of my job is designing lures and selling lures, and you know, I wanted to come out here and see what they worked. I knew they worked, but we had to figure out how. Well, now we have a message, and that's what we're doing is we're sharing it. We're not keeping this as a secret. We want everyone to join in on the fun. You know, I mean, like my kid here, you know, I mean, since he's little, he's been doing this. And so, you know, get your kids out and do it. Just because you don't have downriggers or you don't have lead core or you don't have this or that, you can get into this and do it.
We actually did a video. We did a video today that's probably, it's going to be on,
so stay tuned. Follow us on social. We'll check everything out. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We had such a good week here. We appreciate all you fans out there. We've been so much love from all of our friends and support, and you know, everybody here has been super cool for the most part. We had a few haters, but that's gonna happen. And other than that, everybody else is cool. And yeah, awesome fishery, Lake Michigan.
One last thing though, I mean, you have a walleye boat with 6 rod holders. That's exactly what we did. We don't have downriggers, we don't have copper, we don't have wire, we don't have any of that right now. If you're coming from out of the area and you want to go fish salmon, follow along on the social platforms.
And if you don't have a boat and you want to go fish salmon, come hit my buddy Patrick up here with Wolfpack Charters here in Sheboygan.
Yeah, we'll take it fishing too. We'll take it fishing too.
Pat is one of the funnest humans ever on the planet to fish with, right? It's like hanging out with Chris Farley. Come fish with Wolfpack if you're here in Sheboygan. Yakima bait, we had some fun. We appreciate all you, like Dennis said. Nothing but love for our fish family.
If you like this video and see what we're talking about, we have 3 previous videos to this to go look at, and they're all raw videos, very unedited, and it shows exactly how we got to this point. It shows our struggle, shows our frustration, it shows a little bit of success where we get excited, and then it shows kind of everything happening where we do actually kill it. I mean, we caught close to 200 fish just in the 3-day derby. So anyway, go check them out. Thanks, guys.